Hi, I am Amanda Cassar and welcome to the Financial Secrets Revealed podcast, where I have collected the wisdom from some amazing people around the world to understand better their money story. I have financial advisors, multi-million-dollar corporate executives, and those surviving on Centrelink, even running global charities. I hope you enjoy listening to the episodes as I speak with these incredible people about their stories. Hi, and welcome back to the Financial Secrets Revealed podcast. Today, I am joined by the incredibly gorgeous Anne-Marie von Douglas. Don't you love those double-barreled names? How are you today, Annie?
I'm fine. It's a gorgeous day outside, and who would not want to live where we do?
Oh, look, we've been so fortunate living in Queensland, haven't we, during these crazy times where we've been impacted very little by the lockdowns of our southern states. And I really feel for all those down there who've been shut up for months and months on end. Now, you were originally a Mexican yourself, we say. You live south of the border, grew up in Sydney in a very theatrical family. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, my dad was theatrical. You might have called him for his day and age. In the 30s, he might have been dubbed as the Hugh Jackman of his time. He was a triple threat, singer, dancer, actor, the whole thing. And then the war came along, and Dad, being what he termed himself as a king and country man, found it necessary to enlist, which he did, and off he went to war as a flight lieutenant in the Air Force, yeah.
Now, you slightly followed in his footsteps, didn't you? You went to the con yourself and studied voice and piano. You worked in theatre for a while to pay your fees, and you were singing in pubs and clubs around Sydney. So that sort of started your career too, didn't it?
It did, which came to a screeching halt when I married, of course, yeah.
As was probably very common of the time, I'm guessing. So you're a song and dance girl, you're in Oklahoma, Fiddler on the Roof, amongst many, many other productions, I'm sure. And you also worked as an air hostess before you got married as well. So how was that?
I did. I actually signed up with TAA because a friend of mine was doing it.
The friendly way. I'm showing my age.
Yes, up and away, definitely. The thing was that I wasn't really interested in being an air hostess. I just needed to get out of Sydney. And I didn't have any money because you're young, you're broke, and you're no money. So when they sign you up, they put you in a different state. So off I went to Melbourne and lived in Melbourne. And I worked for TAA for a couple of years and then lucked into probably the best hostess job in Australia at the time. It was for the private air hostess for BHP, Comalco and Comms Inc. So 3 little Grumman Gulfstream Mark II jets and overseas passengers and me for 2 weeks at a time, which was really great. It was lovely.
And so between the theatre and the jet set lifestyle, you've said that all came to a screaming halt once you got married. So who came along and swept you off your feet?
Well, my husband came along and he was living in Melbourne. He was this glamorous European count and it all looked very wonderful and he was pretty gorgeous and met and married within 3 months. And, you don't listen to your parents, do you?
Well, who does, seriously? What would they know?
No.
So then life got very different. You said you moved to Europe?
We did. After a year we moved to Europe. His father came out to approve of the new bride and paid us a trip to Europe and we stayed. We lived in Germany for the next few years, yeah.
And I believe you are still very conversant in German. That's probably the worst accent ever.
Yes, not going there. Yes, I am.
I was going to say, today you also work not only as a vocal coach but a marriage celebrant and do both English and German services. You never lost the German, obviously.
No.
So you've gone from this, little girl singing in the clubs and pubs around Sydney, jet setting a little bit from Melbourne and doing tours there, to suddenly this married a German count, and that sounds terribly exotic. And the family has, I believe, quite long history with the Black Douglases out of Scotland that led to Europe, I'm guessing, after Culloden. So for all the Outlander fans out there, they'll be quite familiar with that now. So how was life then very different for you?
It was very different because we lived in a little small town in the south of Germany and then moved to Munich as well. So, but his father was very present in our lives and a bit of a control freak and wanted to run everybody's lives. So we lived there for about 3 years, 3.5, 4 years, and moved back to Sydney because my father was not well and we wanted basically to have a life of our own and not be overrun by the family, all the brouhaha that went on over there, yeah.
So were you working, or was hubby working whilst you're in Europe?
Oh, he was working. No, Douglas wives do not work. No, that was not permitted. So I basically spent my time sitting in the unit or hopping into my little VW or little Porsche, whatever I had, and spiffing off around the countryside while he was working. So I wasn't permitted to work.
Okay. Now that sort of, just touches on a theme that we might come to a little bit later, but it was also, I suppose, quite traditional for the times that wives didn't work and hubbies were the breadwinner. So you came back to Australia, you said, to start a new life without the, intergenerational control going on. You also started working at radio stations, or you had your children first, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
yes,
so you've got two lovely grown-up daughters now.
Yeah. Mm. One of my children was autistic, and in those days we didn't know terribly much about it. So she was in a Rudolf Steiner school, and that was the type of life that we led for that time. Yeah, until they got into high school.
Yeah, which would have been. Yeah, quite. I suppose these days it's very mainstream to, everybody's heard of and knows of autism, but in the 70s that would have been quite unheard of, very quirky, I guess.
Nobody knew what it was and no support at all. So it was a little difficult, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So I haven't told anyone yet, but you are my singing teacher. So you are the lovely lady who gets to listen to me wobble away every week.
And you're doing very well, very well.
But you're not going to enter me on The Voice or Australia's Got Talent, are you?
Breathe, Amanda, breathe. Use the diaphragm.
I'll just do, jazz hands and show tunes in your living room and be quite happy with that. So. All right. So you're now, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag, in your 70s and still doing a little bit of part-time singing teaching. So a little bit more about your own personal family background. You grew up in an extended family, which was also, I suppose, quite common to live with other generations. So how did that work when you were growing up?
Well, after my dad got back from the war, that he came back once when he was shot down, and then the boys appeared after that, my twin brothers. And then after he got back at the end of the war in 46, I appeared in 47. And my mother had been being taken care of by her grandmother, her mother, and her older sister. So they remained in the family unit. So my grandmother and my auntie lived with us all the time, and my two older brothers. And that was our family. That's how we worked.
And your mother was from a huge family, I think I recall. She was one of, was it 13 babies?
Yes, youngest of 13, yes.
Wow. Yeah. And she did piecework. Can you tell us a little bit about what piecework is?
Well, she did. My auntie, during the war, had worked in a boot factory. And because the men were all away, my auntie became the forelady of this boot factory, and she continued to work there. She was unmarried, decidedly unmarried, yes.
The spinster aunt of legend.
The spinster aunt of legend. And she was a hypochondriac as well. It was wonderful growing up with that.
Beautiful.
Yes. And so she would bring work. The factory would provide a massive commercial machine, and my mother would sew the boot tops in the back room of our house, and that provided her with enough money to put us through private school.
Wow, lovely. And father ran movie theatres, I believe.
He did, yes.
So was he a cutthroat businessman then?
He was hopeless, bless him.
Oh,
no,
bless.
he was told he was too nice to be cutthroat. So no, he was not a cutthroat businessman. He was a song and dance man. He was a gentle, gorgeous man, and no, financial things were just not his forte at all.
So I'm guessing there wasn't a lot passed on about money or lessons from your family on money then.
Well, the only thing that father did was that those were different days. You finished school on the last day of school. You did not get a year off to go cavorting wherever you wanted to do. You sat down the next day with the Sydney Morning Herald with your father, and you ticked off jobs if you weren't going to university, and you went out and you got your job. And your father then taught you paid your medical benefits and you put a third away for emergencies that went into a savings account that you did not touch. And the rest of it, you paid your rent, and whatever was left was what you had to live on.
Right. So he did give you some basic financial grounding then, which I find not many did do.
Mm.
So that was it. And then now, did hubby take care of things financially when you married? I think was it 22 when you married?
I was 22 and just starry-eyed. I did run across, I was just, because I'd had such an open and loving family and, wonderful family life, it was very strange to me to be in this family where once a week my mother-in-law had to go downstairs to my father-in-law's office with her household book and turn over the books of what she had spent, every penny that she had spent. And my husband said to me that he thought that was a very good idea. I just laughed. I thought that was hysterically funny. So, no, he didn't push the subject any further, but he was in control of the money and I just didn't have really any interest in it.
And look, that was also quite common too, wasn't it? To this day, there's usually one person in a relationship who is a bit more savvy or takes on that responsibility to run the funds. So now, in all this glamorous jet set lifestyle it appears that you were living, were there any financial setbacks at all that you guys came across?
Yes, when we returned to Australia, it cost a lot of money to bring all our belongings back to Australia. And in actual fact, when we arrived, we were like 5 years behind everybody else in the system that existed in those days. You got married, you lived in your parents' garage with your mother's old sheets up at the windows, and you saved your $5,000 deposit between the two of you working. And then you put your deposit on your house. You moved in with no furniture, no driveways, no air conditioning, none of that stuff that you have today. And you earned
eating
it
off
step
the iron
by
board,
step.
yes.
Yes, you did. You did all those things with the old stuff from your parents. It's very different today, but it was a saving generation. You saved your money. Mm.
And eventually, I believe your marriage came to an end and hubby was away at the time. And I think you told me he kept phoning you to add a few more funds or funnel him some more funds. So that was, I suppose, the beginning of the end for you. How long were you married for?
32 years.
32. Okay. And the separation, obviously, this is one of the biggest areas of financial setbacks because everybody has to start over. So how did you manage? I suppose you're now, mid-50s, suddenly single. That has to be a financial setback. I know in Australia now, women over 50, it's the fastest growing rate of homelessness in the country. Yeah. So how did you survive that?
Well, it was a lengthy separation because I wasn't aware that it was going on. We had downsized from our business. He'd closed the business. We were downsizing because the girls had moved out, selling the big house, put me in a little house with all the furniture, said I've bought the yacht. We're going up to just a little yacht, not a great big Onassis yacht, just a little thing. We were going to sail the Whitsundays for a little while. What I didn't realise was that he already had his girlfriend ensconced up there. And while he was doing the business of supposedly looking for a house and fixing the boat up, they were siphoning off money and taking care of what was there. So I was left with a small amount. And I was immediately put, after the devastation of that shock, I was put on what was called the widow's allowance by Centrelink. So that was all I had and that little bit of money that was left. So I had to hang on to that little bit of money real tight because I didn't know where that was going and figure out a way to earn a living or find out who the heck I was after all of that and build another life. So it wasn't difficult and money was really tight.
And sadly, that's not anymore a very uncommon story, is it, to be suddenly single in your 50s? And like you said, you weren't allowed to work. So you had to fall back on those skills that you'd had from very, very early, studying, and basically rebuild your life and career mid-50s. So yes. Was there any financial things you'd learned that held you in good stead during that time?
That basic premise that my father put down would save that basic bit, even if it isn't a third, that bit that comes out of what you're given or what you get, that bit is untouchable. and whatever money you have set aside, that is never touch the principal. And I think you're having hell's own trouble trying to
How many
convince
times
me.
have I heard you say
I know,
that?
don't touch the principal then. and try to find a way to learn about finances and to learn about how to handle this stuff, and finding a way to earn a living when you're in your 50s. It's not exactly the glamorous time to go out and start looking for work in theatre. It don't happen. So joining local
They're the
theatre.
character roles, Annie.
Yes, I'm somebody's grandmother now. I could never have it all yet.
No longer the ingenue.
Not happening anymore. So all I had really was the voice. So, and getting older, your voice, there's no singing in clubs and pubs and those things anymore. So it was radio for me. So radio kept my head above water. Plus working on other things as well. You know, taking in ironing, taking in washing, working, doing IKEA building cleans. All of that stuff happened before you get yourself sorted into what you're going to do and get a job, which was radio.
And that's a really interesting tip too, because I know there's generations of people now who just believe that, you know, that hard work isn't for them. It's either beneath them or it's not what they train to do.
Yeah.
And yet I suppose when you're in a situation where you're starting over, you just have to do what you have to do to make ends meet. So I think that scrappy attitude is also probably very much post-war babies. I've seen that, you know, nothing's beneath, you know, whether it's waitressing or, like you said, ironing, cleaning, it has to be done and people will pay for it. So
you just do it. If you want the money,
and got
if you
you
want
through,
to feed
obviously.
your face, you've got to do it. Exactly. So you just get on with it. And that is baby boomer style. Yeah.
Very much so. Do you have a top financial tip that you passed on to your children from all the lessons you learned?
The same as my father passed on to me. That portion of whatever it is that you earn is set aside, and who knows whether they listen or not. I think one of them does, the other one doesn't. There's always one in the nest, isn't there? So just
only one?
How many have you got, Amanda? That
just two.
Basic premise is put that bit aside and don't touch that bit, because you don't know when you're going to have to fall back on that. And we didn't have government to fall back on. Like your kids now immediately sign up for Centrelink the minute they leave school, which is a craziness. We never had that. So you have to be self-sufficient with what you've got.
So you had to nurse that little nest egg that you walked away with, which I know wasn't a substantial amount of money, plus live on the pension and then take in what work you could. How hard is it to stick to a budget when you have such a limited income? And do you find is it possible to stick to a budget when you're, I suppose, struggling each week?
It is possible to stick to the budget. It is possible. You just have to get your head around the fact that you can't go out for friends with a cup of coffee when you want to, because a cup of coffee can cost between $5 and $7, depending on how much you like. And that pension doesn't go very far. So until you can get yourself established, you've got to do what the baby boomers generation learned. Go without.
Mm. Yeah, that's a hard lesson for a lot of people, isn't it?
Is.
The old live within your means, which you just brought up with, that was just normal. With the, I suppose, advent of credit these days, it's like, have it now, worry about it later.
Yeah.
Go to the bank in the wall.
It's a big, deep hole in the wall is what it is. Yes.
I love it. There's this one kid I know who said to his mum, just put it on Visa, mum, like just had no clue that, you know, the Visa does have to be repaid. It's not this never ending. But I suppose living in a world without actual cash, that concept of money is completely different to the younger generations today.
And I must interject,
so you've gone
that's one thing I don't have is a credit card. I have a debit card. I do not have credit cards. I don't go into debt at all at any time.
Now, you're the second person who's given us that tip, so it must be a really good one. Get rid of the credit cards, stick with the debit cards, which basically means if you can't afford it, you can't have it. Yeah, brilliant tip. Now, like I've said, you've gone from this jet-setty lifestyle to living on a pension, so we could call it champagne lifestyle now, be a budget. In that time frame, did you ever use financial professionals, advisors or accountants or anything over the years?
Not until I tripped over you.
Even when hubby was in business or running things?
No, he didn't. He handled everything. I don't believe he ever, except for taking out loans for our houses, for our homes that we bought and built. And I think there were about 7 or 8 of them during our lifetime together. He handled all of that, handling loans for the business and all of that sort of thing. That's how he managed to get away with a fair amount, because towards the end he was putting second mortgages on the house that I didn't know about, just handing me the paper and saying sign here, which is unfortunately what women of my generation mostly did. So we need to learn to take an interest in what is going on, even if you don't have what's that word about sums? Mathematical, that brain. Don't have one of those. And I don't. I'm always looking for the butterflies. I'm not interested in the numbers.
You're the creative one.
Well, that's what I keep you for. You can do that stuff. But
the numbers girl.
Yeah, he was like that. He handled the money and I just signed the paperwork. So really, open your eyes, girls. Even if you trust your husband, love your husband, but open your eyes.
It's a really interesting tip, because these days, some of the things you've mentioned are actually signs of what is now called economic or financial abuse. So the ability to not earn an income, or being forbidden to earn an income, or better yourself, not having access to documents, I suppose, signing things that you didn't understand. All these are now what we call red flags for financial abuse. And I'm sure going through your life, you had absolutely no idea that was what was happening.
That's true.
Would that be right?
Yes, we had a joint account. And I must say, to be fair, in that joint account, if I ever did earn anything, whatever I earned went into that joint account. I didn't question where it went. And he never, ever denied me anything. But I had to ask. I had to ask for what I wanted, always, and get his approval before I bought what I wanted. But he never denied me anything, but he had that control. Yeah.
Which is, really interesting, because it's very hard, I suppose, to go from that. What was just, this was the tradition. This was the way it was done. Men were the breadwinner. Women didn't work up until the war, when the men went away. And, it was only then that reluctantly they were given the work, and then had to fight when the men came back to maintain jobs. So it's... this very interesting creep, I suppose, of, the freedoms, and then all of a sudden what was once tradition has become abuse. So it must be difficult to go, well, these are now signs of financial abuse, yet it was a traditional husband, wife, breadwinner, family role at the time. But then I suppose looking back, like you've said, girls, open your eyes.
Yes, and to be honest, I don't think he saw it as abuse, and I don't think most husbands then did see that as abuse or over control. They just believed that was their job to do, and the little woman didn't need to worry about those things. You worried about the children, and he worried about the household, and he worried about the money, and he would have been not so much offended as surprised if you asked what was going on financially. You don't need to worry your little head about that.
It's amazing. It's only been it's a generation, and the changes that have become, so dramatic in that, 20, 30, 40 year period, where, we do have to now take care of ourselves. And the cases that I'm hearing of with economic and financial abuse between partners, it's pretty mind blowing. But I suppose, like you said, it comes from that generational view of, we take care of the money, you take care of the household. So it's turned everything on its head. Do you have, after all these years, a favourite form of investment?
I can feel you cringing away there in the background. I'm still of the same mindset.
I don't even have a twitch, I promise.
I don't like to touch the principal. I prefer term deposits. But term deposits these days are paying tuppence halfpenny, and it's absolutely useless. You can't live on that. So I have learned to diversify in things that you have shown me how to do. But mostly for me, it's still, if I've got that cash in the bank and I can see it there, I'm happy with that. If it were paying better interest today, but it's not. So I have to learn to diversify. So moving out of the comfort zone there.
And again, you've probably seen in the last 20, 30 years, we've gone from interest rates that have, blown out to 18, 19% in cash, and we're now at 0.1. So for retirees, that's horrific, where for mortgagees it was horrific. So
exactly.
Yeah,
So
swings and roundabouts.
Yes, swings and roundabouts. But when we were getting 18% in the 80s, we just thought that was amazing. That's what helped us pay our houses off, with the interest rates that we were getting. But oh my goodness, it was not sustainable. I see that now.
Yeah, well, it was hard for people. I remember my dad moaning about, he had $100,000 mortgage at 18%. And, these days you can have a $500,000 mortgage at 3% and, still be paying less than your father was 30 years ago. So, yeah, it's definitely crazy times. Now, the other thing you do as a celebrant, you told me you love investing in creativity. So you can still chase your butterflies while your term deposits are working.
Yeah.
Or your diversified investments.
Yeah.
And you write and deliver wedding ceremonies.
I love that. I really love that because I love people. As much as sometimes you'd like to hit them with something, people are people and people are lovely. And if you've got to see the good side. So when I'm talking to couples and they tell me their stories, then I can write a little story for their wedding and keep it humorous and keep it loving and help them write their vows and help them write their ring ceremonies and all of the other little things that go into a wedding that they want. I enjoy doing that very much because it brings you quite close to people. And some people who I have married are still, they've brought their children to me to do naming ceremonies. And I've got a couple in Germany that are in contact with me all the time that I married on Currumbin Beach 15 years ago and loved it.
Oh, beautiful. So friends for life from investing in your creativity. Gorgeous. Well, thank you so much for sharing your, I think, is it a riches to rags story? You've just done everything bum about face.
Living in tatters, babe, but it's a good life, yeah.
But I think you do it so beautifully and so elegantly, and I think it's very difficult, I think, for people to come down who've had a lovely, international jet setting lifestyle to then cope on, well, how do you survive on Centrelink? So to know that, by just implementing a few very simple, common sense rules and approach, it is possible. You don't, I suppose, deprive yourself, but you're sensible. And that's, I think, a really great lesson for people who, are struggling to do the old tighten the belt.
Mm-hmm. See, the trouble is, as you get older, your waistline grows. You see, so tightening the belt becomes more and more difficult.
Or as you grow, you just leave it in that one belt buckle and it gets tighter as you grow.
We suffer, yes.
Oh dear, look, we'll sit here and natter all day, but thank you so much for sharing your financial lessons with us. We've had people who are multimillionaires to those surviving on, Centrelink or Social Security. So it's lovely to have that diversity and thank you for sharing your lessons. Really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And that was another episode of Financial Secrets Revealed. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you got some nuggets of wisdom out of that guest and enjoyed listening to their story. If you'd like to know more, please reach out to me. My contact details are in the show notes, or hunt down your favourite bookstore to find Financial Secrets Revealed and learn more for yourself. I look forward to hearing from you.